Welcome to another video series. In this particular series, we are going to look at the roadmap for software architects. Hi, I'm Vivin Arana and I'm going to walk you through this particular video series. In this particular series, we will cover 8 different things, which include first, we'll start with documentation. The next section will be about design principles. Next, we're going to talk about configuration management. We're going to talk about monitoring and logging. Next, we're going to go into infrastructure as code. We're going to look at different modeling tools and we'll look at architecture patterns after that. And finally, we will look at CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous deployment. So in the first particular series or first particular video, this video, we're going to talk about different documentation type. And the different documentation types that a developer or an architect needs to know are Markdown, Sphinx, AsciiDoc, Doxygen, and JavaDoc. Now these are separate and different, so I'm going to go over each one of them specifically. So let's start with Markdown. Markdown is a lightweight markup language with plain text formatting syntax. It's often used to format README files for writing messages in online discussion, forums, and to create rich text using a plain text editor. Now, some of the key features include, as I mentioned in our overview, simplicity, easy to write and read. Next is formatting, which is supports headers, lists, bold, italics, links, images, and code blocks. It also is very compatible, so compatibility can be converted to HTML and other formats using various tools. So these are some of the key features. Now usage, where is it used? Creating documentation files like readme.md for GitHub projects, that's where it's used for writing blog posts, and used for preparing notes and documentation for various purposes. Now let's look at an example. In this particular example, I've created a heading by giving the pound sign markdown example. You can create a subheading by using double pound. You can create bullet points by using the dash. And as I mentioned, you can do bold and italics by using the star twice for bold and once for italic text. You can also use the backtick or backquote 3 times and add code block inside that so it looks nicer whenever it's rendered anywhere. The next documentation tool that we're going to look at or an architect should know is Sphinx. Now Sphinx is a tool that makes it easy to create intelligent and beautiful documentation. Initially created for only Python documentation, it has excellent support for wide range of programming languages. Some of the key features include the restructured text or REST uses restructured text as its markup language in Sphinx. Next key feature is extensibility, where highly extensible with a large number of plugins available. Next is themes, various built-in themes for the HTML output. And last one is inter-document linking, where supports cross-reference documentations and sections where you can do much branching and subs classifications and stuff. So these are some of the key features of Sphinx. Usage is documenting Python projects and creating websites and project documentation with complex structure and multiple documents. Here is an example of Sphinx, Sphinx example. You can create a paragraph with stars like a bold text and italic text similar to markup. You can create a code block with double with colon signs and provide the language over there and also create examples. Here's a Python example of a Python function which is called example. So this is a Sphinx example. Next, we look at AsciiDoc. Now, AsciiDoc is a text document format for writing notes, documentations, articles, books, and more. It can be translated to many formats, including HTML, PDF, and man pages. Some of the key features include it's very versatile, which is suitable for complex documentation like books and manuals. It's semantic markup, which provides rich semantic markup capabilities. It's customizable, which is highly customizable output formats, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the usage is writing documentation for software projects, creating books and technical manuals, preparing articles and papers. Here is an example of AsciiDoc. If you see, the headers are given by equal to sign, subheadings by double equal to. You can create bullet points using the star. You can bold by adding text in between star signs, And for italic text, you can use underscore. You can specify a code block by saying source and what language it is in square brackets, and provide the code in between the 4 dashes that we have created here. Next, Doxygen. Now, Doxygen is a documentation generator primarily for C++, C, and other programming languages. It extracts comments from source code and generates comprehensive documentation. So you do not have to do much. So some of the key features include the code comments. It generates documentation from specifically formatted comments in the source code. So you have to make sure that your source code has the right documentation already provided by the dev. Output formats supports HTML, LaTeX, RTF, and more. And as per diagrams, can generate diagrams for class hierarchies and dependencies. So it automatically does it for you. Now, usage is documenting source code in C++, C, Java, Python, and other languages. It's creating reference manuals for from code and annotations. So that's what it can be used for. Here is an example. It looks much like, if you look at this, this is a source code actually, where you can say that a Doxygen example by @brief sign and detailed description of the function, you can provide it there. And here is an example of function implementation which is there, but above inside the comments we have probably used the Doxygen example using the @brief, where you provide all the description for that particular function. Next one, Javadoc. Javadoc is documentation generator for Java. It reads Java source code and produces HTML documentation files from specially formatted comments. Now, key features are standardized format, so standard tool for Java documentation. HTML output generates comprehensive HTML documentation for your code, and API documentation used for generating API documentation from Java source code. So if you're providing API contracts to someone, this is much more helpful. The usage is documenting Java classes, interfaces, methods, and fields. It creates API documentation for Java libraries and applications, which can be shared by, so you don't have to share the actual code, but if your code is well documented, this can extract that and provide documentation for other teams to look at. Now here is an example. Now inside a particular uh, example class here, which is written in Java, we have JavaDoc, where detailed description is provided. You can create the example method, and over there you can specify like what parameter is required for this particular function. You can add that inside the comments, and JavaDoc will extract all these comments and create a documentation for you. So the key features for the last two ones, which is JavaDoc and Doxygen, is to make sure that when you are doing your PR reviews, you make sure that the code is well documented, or create a ticket for making sure that documentation is done on the code that is being created. So that's it for documentation, and next we will jump into more details for the next section, which is design principles. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and move on to the next video.